Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today, huh? So we had a commenter here who posted some interesting questions. First, he started off by saying that, do I realize that hardly anyone agrees with me? Okay, well, first of all I want to say to that is I wish I had $1 for every time somebody said that to me and used it as some kind of an argument that I was wrong, or just generally to use that argument to try to show that somebody is wrong. And I'm not trying to accuse this person of trying to say that I was wrong. He was just pointing that out. But I mean, history is replete with examples when the mass of people believed a certain thing and that certain thing came out to be wrong. I mean, we could think of so many examples, right? For thousands of years, people believed that the sun revolved around the earth or that the earth was flat, okay? So all kinds of theories like this that were believed by the masses of people, and then one person comes along or a small group of people come along and say, no, the opposite of true is true. So don't fall into the trap. First of all, don't fall into the trap of using that as an argument that just because large numbers of people don't believe what you're saying, that does not make what you are saying untrue. Okay? So just understand that. But this person says, and by the way, when I was still over at Fox News, I used to hear that argument all the time, especially after the crisis and then in 2010, 2011. And I used to say, interest rates were going to fall. The quantitative easing and the low rates and the zero interest rate policy was not going to create inflation or hyperinflation. I used to say that the government could spend any amount of money. And I used to hear that criticism, oh, nobody's saying what you say. Nobody says what you say. Well, who was right? I was right. All right, but then the other part of that guy's question or comment, he had the question of what are the limits of MMT? To which I should say, MMT is not a prescription, it is a description, it is a definition. Okay, it describes the operation of the monetary system. It would be like saying, to say what are the limits of MMT, that would be like saying what are the limits of force equals mass times acceleration. That's Newton's second law of physics, right? There's no limits. It's just a description of what happens, describing force as mass times acceleration. Okay, now I think what is meant in that question is, suppose we employ some of the concepts of MMT, like the government could spend all it wants, it is not constrained by tax revenues. And again, we're talking about a government operating with a free floating sovereign currency that is non-convertible. In other words, it's not fixed to any exchange of gold at any particular rate or any other currency where it could be exchanged at any fixed rate. Okay, so under that system, which is the system we have now, I think his question was, what happens? How far can you take that? Obviously, spending money to the degree that it uses up all available resources and capital, and by capital I mean physical capital, plant and equipment, and human capital, the labor, then you create inflation. Okay, and now don't forget, when you look at physical capital and labor in today's world, you're really talking about the whole entire global economy. And we see that very evident today that, a lot of production is outsourced, a lot of labor is outsourced because it's cheaper. So when you really step on the accelerator and let's say you max out the capacity of labor and physical resources, plant and equipment, let's say, for example, here in the United States, uh, who's to say or what's to say that you couldn't engage more physical capital and human capital outside the United States? So I would say, there's a long way you can go until you reach some kind of a limit. Okay, I would say the limits are also political, and that is due to the fact that most people, 99.9%, 100%, I call them the zombies. Um, there we go. Don't believe that this can be done, right? Those are the people who they disagree with what I say, which some people would argue that that's proof that what I say is wrong, but it's not, as I just explained. So, MMT is not a prescription, it is a description. The monetary system, the way it is set up now, where we have a free floating currency, non convertible, the government has the ability to increase aggregate demand at will. I mean, it could just spend more, could spend on lots of things. I've said this many times. You could spend on infrastructure, on healthcare, on education, on alternative energy, on mass transportation. These things would create the real capital that we would need now and in the future. Don't forget, a lot of the real capital that we're running on today, the infrastructure, for example, that was built 50, 60, 70 years ago. So, I mean, it's time to upgrade those investments. We're still utilizing those investments. How did Eisenhower pay for the interstate highway system? That was deficit spending that paid for that, okay? So, there are no limits to MMT per se because MMT is not a prescription, it's a description. And the limits are the ones that I have described where, if you push it to the max, if you use all available resources and capital, and again, when I say capital, I'm not talking about money because that's infinite. The government could credit bank accounts to any extent that it wants. I'm talking about physical capital, the ability to produce things, the resources that you need, the labor that you need, the infrastructure that you need, the plant and equipment. So that is a limit. And then when you push beyond that limit, you have inflation, which again, that's a political choice. Who's to say that deflation is preferable to inflation? If we choose deflation, all right, then we're choosing a condition that for some people is just as bad as an inflationary condition. So that's a choice too. If we choose to limit our available capacity and limit our available labor and create deflation, then that's a choice too. And who's to say that choice is better than inflation? That's up for discussion too. So there you have it. See you later. Bye.